Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Startup Sense podcast. This is your host, Jonah Lupton. Thank you so much for joining us today. Do me a quick favor if you get a chance and go to iTunes or Google Play and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Okay, today's guest is a good one as usual. It's Vinnie Fisher. He is the co-founder and CEO of a company called FullyAccountable. They basically are your back office solution. And we're going to talk about what they do. It looks like a very comprehensive platform. Me and Vinny are actually talking about possibly using his software for one of my businesses. So I'm excited to learn more. Let's welcome Vinny. Vinny, how are you, man?
Hey, Jonah. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you so much for joining us. Before we talk about your company, just tell us about yourself.
Yeah, Vinnie Fisher. I'm a husband of 22 years to my bride, Debbie. We have 4 children in the almost all teenage years, keeping us super busy there with an additional driver in the house. And, as you mentioned, I'm the CEO of a, almost 50 employee company servicing almost a few hundred businesses around North America that we have excitingly launched a complete software solution for small businesses and looking to kind of change the world. We're excited.
Awesome. So you guys are based in Akron, Ohio. Is the whole team there, or do you guys have some virtual people?
We believe in a concept. The answer is we're mostly here, but we believe in a concept, Jonah, of a super employee. So every one of our team members, in addition to the team I just mentioned, has a virtual assistant in their discipline. So so let's just say our chief developer has their own programmer that works exclusively for him. So if you added those people in, we'd be substantially larger, but we're virtualized because of that.
Now, are those virtual people freelancers?
No, we hire them full time for us.
Oh, wow. Okay. So let's talk about the business. What exactly do you guys, you mentioned this, talked a little bit a second ago, but what exactly, give us a big picture of FullyAccountable and what you guys can provide for startups or any company.
Yeah, so we are just as the tagline suggests, we are your back office solution. So what does that mean? That means when we started FullyAccountable in 2014, we were a traditional finance accounting company, which means we handled all of your back end accounting. Well, while we were the actual nice, boring service of doing that, we took all of our, I'm a lawyer by trade, but I'm a direct response marketer. We answered the call to a gigantic gap in kind of real time reporting and all that fun stuff. So while we were building that super boring business, and I say that because we're a business that people need, not want, right? No one talks about wanting their accountant, they need it. And so along the way, we realized that the accountant and bookkeeper internally in a company or externally servicing a company needs to be able to handle all of the accounting, HR, and operations of the company. So we built an all-in-one solution that we use ourselves in delivering our service and sell out to account licenses for people to use it externally in their own company as well. And so all of the aspects of managing your team as well as your accounting and your operations happens inside of our one database of our software.
Awesome. And it looks like you guys have a very nice dashboard with all the KPIs basically right in front. The business owner can just log in and kind of see all these important numbers in one quick snapshot.
Yeah, so the thing that's different than just your normal dashboards that are out there, we tie back to your accounting. Which I mean by that is, so whatever money's coming in through your gateway or hitting your bank account, all of your performance metrics are tied back to real math, not just an assumption that you're going to receive that real math. So we actually tie back to your QuickBooks. And so everything we do is important and critical to tie to real numbers, not potential or hypothetical numbers.
Right. Okay. So you mentioned before you guys work with a few hundred different customers, businesses.
Yep.
What would you say the average size of those businesses is, either in number of employees or revenue or both?
So on the done for you side of our business, that is like where you actually, in addition to using our software platform, if we're the person actually doing the work of it, then those are $1 million up companies in revenue. If you're actually running the software yourself, you're a service company, then we have service businesses as low as, or even starting up companies which is your community, probably as low as $250,000 in revenue.
Okay. I mean, how long does it take a business to kind of get set up with your platform and get things rolling?
If it's the piece where we're plugging in our software in your QuickBooks and getting you guys started, less than 2 weeks. If it's the done for you, we say, hey, help us with the first month. Let us, we believe in that so much. We give you that first month for free if we're the done for you. And it takes, we say about 30 days to produce the first set of reports.
Okay. So I would hire you guys, say I have a 15-person company. We're doing $2 million a year in revenue. We're using QuickBooks right now. We would plug into your software, and would I essentially be saving myself time or money each month, or both?
Well, for sure. My tagline that I say all the time is, if you don't have a real an honest view of your numbers, that means you don't know your revenue. But once you know your revenue, it's easy to throw money at traffic, right? So, if you don't have a granular view of that, then you're losing a ton of money. So we say we're probably the most revenue generating department of the company. But what we save you on the software is lack of resources. So you always have this nice girl, Mary or Diana or Tim in your office, who are really good at being a controller or even a master bookkeeper, but they literally have no resources to do their job correctly. So for that person, we make your life to have a real accounting department, a real back office. For purposes of companies that don't have that expertise in person, you get to hire us at a sliver of the cost that you could ever go out on the marketplace and hire it.
What are some of the messes that you see businesses get themselves into by not having their accounting done properly, or not knowing their KPIs? Any good stories you can share with us?
You ever hear I have probably way stories. I'm a lawyer, right? So stories are what I have. But, I heard a great interview once by the CEO, the founder of LegalZoom, and someone asked him a question: what's more important, growth or profit? And his answer was great. His answer was, unless you have a capital account that's funded externally and it's almost unlimited, if you don't have that, then every other business should be focused on profit. So the worst thing we see are businesses that don't really understand the numbers, or are kind of ignoring it, and they're just trying to grow like the top line, and they have no money left. And the worst part is, which means they have no cash flow. So if they don't have cash flow, they can't afford to make mistakes. And that's probably the worst thing we see, is someone has no idea what their real cash flow is in order to navigate the mistakes they make in their business.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because they probably look at their bank statement or log into their bank account and they see how much money's in there, and they forget about all the other, accounts payable or accounts receivables or any of that stuff. I mean, I think you're probably right. I mean, I have friends that run small service businesses that do not do a good job of managing their cash flow.
Yeah, and so we help product businesses, software companies, information business, and we have a very digital heavy client base because of, one, probably my Rolodex, two, what we offer, and it's across the board. It's just not service companies, startups, your community of people we're listening to. I don't really take someone else's businesses. I start my own. And I've been a startup multiple times. And one of the hardest things is we got to get an offer to start converting. And we'll ignore all the other parts of our business so that when it kicks in, we're scrambling on all the other pieces. And that's the part that I'd like to see have some real changes. That's why we opened this company, is to stop some of that reckless things from happening, because the small business lacks all the resources because all the big companies have them. And so, thankfully I'm in a position where I was able to create this on my dime and do it right. And, we're just trying to help that business from not being one of those statistics.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So the company's bootstrapped bootstrapped until now, and maybe your plans are to bootstrap it forever. When did you start the company?
I had a very large health supplement company that we were doing almost 40 million in revenue. I had a large sales department and a accounting team, and I literally didn't know some of my true integrated marketing costs. I didn't know my affiliate numbers. I didn't know anything. I was blind. I was guessing. And I went with the old adage of, well, there's more money in the bank this month than there was last. And I never thought about profit margin or anything that really mattered. And that epiphany of fixing that problem happened in the summer of 2014. And then by the fall of 2014, we were formal and running as Fully Accountable. And then we had 3 sister companies at the time that we were busy doing all the work for. And then we let a couple of our client friends in the door. In 2015, February, we opened it up to the world.
This is Jonah Lupton, founder of the Lupton Group and host of the Startup Sense podcast. Are you struggling to find the right tech team to build your company's website or mobile app? Maybe you've developed a product but need help with your go-to-market strategy, including branding and marketing. Well, stop worrying, because my team at the Lupton Group can assist you with all of those needs. We specialize in helping entrepreneurs and startups of all sizes launch and grow their businesses. For a free consultation, you can email me at jonahlupton@gmail.com or visit our website at luptongroup.co. What happened to that health supplement business?
I sold it.
Oh, okay. And is that some of the cash that you used to fund this business?
Well, I was thankful that was my third 8-figure business. So I had a pretty good exit before that. And so, we grew the 7th largest hosting company in the world. I owned a company called brainhost.com. And then I built out a thing called freewebsite.com. And so I had a couple good runs in there, Jonah. And
Awesome.
I had always wanted to do a health supplement business. And my business partner and I at the time, we did it and had some fun. And we were able to exit out of that. And we're both on to our ventures running he started up a really cool peer-to-peer business. And I started up a software accounting company.
Cool. So when you started the business, how did you, I don't know if you're a technical person or not, but did you have to hire a team of engineers or developers to build the platform?
So I am not a technical person. I've always been historically our affiliate manager, our salesperson. And so I'm a pretty good marketer. I get buying behavior. So I'm always tied to our offers and our funnels and our landing pages and our marketing message. I have enough. This is my third software type business. I'd say I hesitated because 2 for sure. The third one, we built a software piece, but I wouldn't have called it a SaaS. And so I get the business, but I have absolutely zero coding skills. And I just knew how to go hire it and make some decisions. And quite honestly, when I didn't, I'd call smart guys like you or some other people and find out what I need.
So when you're hiring technical talent, you typically outsource that to someone else?
No, not now. I mean, we have our entire business is premised on HR and accounting. So we do that for a lot of people. I don't outsource any of the hiring that to anybody else. I'm in an iteration of my business 4 iterations ago. We would have needed some help on that, but that question was, we don't outsource that. But a lot of companies need to.
So from the time that you decided that you wanted to go into this to when you were actually bringing clients in, how much time do you think had passed?
Yeah, so I'd like to help your community know that I'm probably go to market on anything I do faster than anybody I know. I don't get caught up in perfection. So I get to market pretty quickly. And so, from the basis of our software, when it was an origin in my mind to its first version was 12 weeks.
Wow, that's fast.
And it's very fast. And quite honestly, that 12 weeks would have accounted to what other people would have accomplished in 6 months.
Oh, for sure, if not more.
Yeah, right. And so I really am thankful that, and by the way, if I was like that even earlier, we went from 0 to hero in our hosting company. Our first month, we did 275 million in revenue, 275,000, excuse me, in revenue. And that would have been amazing. We did 275,000 revenue. And the next month after that, we did $2.1 million.
Jesus. Now, okay. So that opens up another door.
Out. Well, we freaked our banks out. Don't get me wrong. We broke a whole bunch of stuff. But, I believe in helping, let the consumer help you to iterate your product as opposed to over iterating in development.
So what has been your customer acquisition or marketing strategy for FullyAccountable? And then what was it for the hosting company? And are the two similar? And then what did you learn from the hosting company that you could apply to this company? I know it's like 3 questions.
Well, that's a great question, Jonah. So we grew our hosting company entirely on an affiliate model. We put an irresistible offer in front of affiliates and paid them very well to be our sales force. first version of Fully Accountable was all done for you service. So it was all referral based, word of mouth. But now with our software, we're just going to go rinse and repeat and follow the exact same affiliate model, and we'll build an external sales force through our affiliates.
For people out there that are looking to build an affiliate model to go along with their business, what can you tell them? What are the 2 or 3 lessons that you learned, or what tricks can were the most successful hacks?
All right, so let's assume we start with the premise that we got to deliver value, right? Let's get that kind of obvious, big statement out there that has to be said. Let's assume your product has really good value for whoever is the end user, and you're solving a problem. If that's true, because it's important, a lot of people skip over that obvious point, but let's assume it is, which means your offer is going to convert and people are going to make money selling it. Well, then what I do is try to get every nickel I'm capable of getting into the affiliate's hand, where I can still present the margin we want to our board and have an external sales force. If the salesmen are making the most money and you can live within your model, you'll explode in growth. So many people want to give nickel and dimes to the affiliates, and they can afford to give them more, and it hurts the growth of their sales department.
So what percentage were you guys giving to the affiliates with HostBrain or BrainHost?
Yeah, so probably a representative discussion there is more than 1%. So depending on what we're talking about, right? So the world of hosting is all about renewals. So I gave away the initial bounty. I'd pay you every penny and maybe even go a little bit negative to acquire the customer. And then I'd hope on the rebill, right? That's the entire model of hosting. And so everyone thought I was crazy. They're like, keep some of that. I'm like, nope, I'm relying on the rebill. And so we went out, we had a very aggressive, we'd spend $200 to acquire $100 customer because we knew on the rebill we'd keep them. And so, but that's a very expensive capital heavy model, right? We were taking every dollar we were making and investing it back in the business. So each business is a little different, right? It's all about the eyeballs, and it's all about, converted users who stick around. So at Fully Accountable, we pay a very aggressive bounty for affiliates who are going to send us regular traffic. But they'll get paid that for life as long as the license is an active license. Way different than the hosting model. We paid a bounty in the hosting. We wanted the renewal, just a different way of growing it. Same result, different way of doing it.
Now, how many affiliates do you have right now for Fully Accountable?
A handful or two. We really just started doing that part of it. We have been growing rapidly at such a pace without having to do that. So to me, an affiliate program isn't necessarily the starting growth of your company. It's the gasoline on a fire, right? So everyone needs to hear this, and I hope they're listening. You need to work at an offer that converts. You don't need to go grow an affiliate program to have an offer that converts. An affiliate program is just an external sales force. So now that our offer is converting at a level that's like irresistible, now's the time to turn up the heat on an affiliate program. It hasn't been the right time until now.
Agreed. Okay, perfect. So what have you guys been doing up until now to grow your customer base?
Really, quite honestly, if I go speak at a big event, like I'm typically a keynote speaker at some big events, they'll all do a rush back to the booths. We have a large Rolodex. I mean, other than my sister and my wife, I know a few people in this business marketplace. So it usually is a joke. It just never plays off as well. So we've all been Rolodex and referral based, and our clients love what we do. And they just continually refer us over and over. It wasn't until we turned our software live, Jonah, that we had something that would scale beyond a one-to-one model. And so we're kind of in the middle and throes of that hockey stick growth now.
Where is what's the perfect phase for a business to jump in and start using your software? I mean, is it when they go from 10 employees to 15 employees, when they go from 1 million revenue to 2 million? Have you guys found a sweet spot?
So the done for you is really, we just started $1 million because it brings other things into play. On our software side, if you're a running business and you need granularization to your numbers, we would be one of your first things I would do. I mean, right as soon as you start collecting revenue, because you need to optimize. So early on, we say, gosh, if you've got you and one employee and $250,000 in revenue, and you're trying to go at this with without some kind of resource that's going to help leverage that, then you're in a lot of trouble.
So over the last 3 years, I've interviewed about 135 guests on the show, and I think you're the first person that's ever, started, grown, managed multiple 10-figure, not 10-figure, what, 8-figure businesses.
Yeah, I've never hit 10. So that's, I think this one's going to, but I've never hit 10.
I guess I meant, an 8-figure is 10 million plus. That's where I'm screwing myself up here. But what have you learned? I mean, obviously there's been a million lessons. I'm sure there's been a million failures, but there's been a lot of successes too. From business to business, what have been I'm not even sure how to phrase this, I guess. What have you learned, right? I mean, what have you learned that you can now apply to this business to turn this into your biggest success so far?
Yeah, I think that's there's a couple large wisdom nuggets. Some people write books about those wisdom nuggets, but, just to give some perspective to that answer, in the last 8 years, I've put up over 300 million in our companies. I've had almost 2,000 employees. So, I've seen it. And the one thing that rings true for me is it takes people. I'm a people over systems person. And in the management of people, I would not have had the privilege or burden of growing these organizations without good people. And I've learned to stop shopping for unicorns and take good people and equip them, and they turn them into great people. And to me, that's probably the biggest item that I could say to people is to be in a hurry, not to be in a hurry on certain things. The other thing that I think is, by the way, this one is a personal thing I have to learn every day. As entrepreneurs, we wake up with the privilege of having 50 good ideas every day. And, Paul, famous author in the Bible, says, everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. Well, I apply that in my business life. I can say yes to so many things, but when I practice pushing out the things that are not in line with what we want to do or not congruent is when I'm really seeing substantial growth in our businesses. And so the reason I can get a software live in a time period that's way more time collapsed than most people is because I'm practicing pushing out distractions. And so I'll tell you what the startups need to hear and what our business community needs to hear is try not to be all things to everybody in your startup and in your software, and really try to push away other distractions because you're cash strapped and you think, oh, let's add that in now. Well, it's just going to lead to a major distraction in your company.
Do you have a specific strategy on recruiting great people? Where do you find them? What's your process? I mean, do you have any favorite questions that you like to ask them? And, how do you typically, what's your retention plan? I mean, do you keep, stock options, overinflated salary? Do they get to work from home? I mean, because hiring talent is hard for startups, for founders. I mean,
so I would say this. Let me go ahead and unpack that for you, Jonah. You said a couple of things in there, some of which, I think we sometimes make this hiring thing unnecessarily difficult. And what I mean by that is I don't believe in misalignment. And let me unpack that a little for you. The hardest part of growing a good business is you don't hire great people. You hire good people. And when you give them systems and resources and training, they have the capability of being a great person. But looking for great people is like hunting for unicorns. Very hard to do. So I don't do that. Starting with that premise, though, I would tell you the startups, like any other small business, it's the phase you're at. The critical thing is to figure out you, the entrepreneur. I say the heartbeat of any small business is the entrepreneur. So our mantra in everything we do is we hire for character, not for competence. So I don't care. You got to if I'm hiring a programmer, you have to have a base subset of knowledge. But when all things are equal, I'll take someone a little less experienced who lines up with me and my personality than I would actually take someone who's more experienced and there's an indicator that their character is not in alignment with me. And so when you practice that, you'll put the people around you that will absolutely help you move the needle in your business. And here's why. Because the person who gets the most benefit of the doubt in your life is you. You know how you react, you know how you tick, you know what goes on with you. And so when character-wise people line up like you, then the rest of it's all competence stuff. You know, I didn't know how to be a lawyer until I knew how to be a lawyer. So the learning curve on competence is just time. The learning curve on character is forever.
What's your theory on like layers of management inside a company? Do you try to have more managers or less managers?
Yeah, Henry Ford and I would have been best friends. I believe in a very lean management style. You know, to me, until just recently, the COO of Fully Accountable was called a project manager. You know, her job is to be the master project manager of all the other people who are delegated to do work. And so I think we can get a little management heavy in companies. And so I like doer managers. And then when one of the jobs becomes too much, we look to either push down and make a super employee or dreaded, we create the management style. But I believe in a very lean type approach to management.
Who's been your best hire so far? Like what I mean, you can name them if you want, or just
So
the
it's
position they
anyone
hold.
who's in my world already knows Jonah. My number two, Rachel, who I plucked out of law school, and she had all the desires and right things. She wanted to be someday. She said, you know, she wants to be involved in a company, wants to help run it, but she didn't want to run her own. She wanted to help run somebody else's. And I knew that I could groom and grow her up. And she started out in the legal department and worked through project management and started running some people under the title of even law clerk, and eventually gave her more responsibility. And guess what? She runs the entire company now.
Wow.
And so 5 years in the making, she's quickly on track to an 8-figure business that is probably heading towards for sure 9, if not something beyond that.
So what does your typical day look like?
My whole job is focused on iteration of the software and continue to improve the marketing and sales process to it. That's all I do. That's it.
Are you
So yeah, I can talk about what my personal habits are, but I want to be careful to early stage entrepreneurs. Man, if we don't put all the effort in, and I don't mean just waste time, but if we don't put the vision and execution effort into our stuff, no one else will. So I want to be careful what my version of where I look like is versus where some of our listeners are at. And so, you know, don't give up. Don't grow weary of the race just because like the success or lack of success of your business is all hinged on you. Well, that's the axiom of the startup, right, Jonah? I mean, it's like, and then once you get past that kind of iteration phase of being a startup, then the reliance just on you should start to back away because you should be investing in other people who are helping you bring that vision to fruition.
Why have you not raised outside capital?
I'm a better builder than I am a buyer. And so since I'm a good builder, I don't play that nice in the sandbox. I don't really want to give away a bunch of my equity if I can afford to fund it.
Right.
Right.
No, I feel you, man. I feel you. I think I'm in the same camp as you. I have not had the success that you've had, but I've certainly chosen to bootstrap rather than to raise outside capital.
So I'm the general counsel of a large church, 12,000 people.
Wow.
And I'll tell you, I always talk about this in this sense. What if the only changing factor is money, then let's put in the effort. And so I think too many people run to money really quick and they think that's the solution to their problem. So we help people all the time with how to get in front of money and all that good stuff. And what we find out is they have a really terrible strategic plan to growth. And they think that money is going to solve that problem. And quite honestly, most of the time it doesn't. So there's this like elusive, exciting, sexy factor to raising money. And lots of times we see that business doesn't need to at that early stage. They might need a Series A because of accelerated growth, but they didn't need it at the friends and family round. They just did that because they didn't really have a clear plan.
I'll ask you this question too then. How do you think about growth versus profits? I mean, do you try to manage a consistent growth rate? You know, because I mean, for a bootstrap company, you probably can grow too fast in some cases. And then you start to run out of cash because, you know, as you grow too fast, you got to hire more and then you get yourselves into trouble.
I think every company, whether you're focused on growth or profit, has to manage the way they scale. What I think what you might mean by grow too fast is grow outside of a profit margin. And so do you believe you're growing towards something that you're not? And I would say that we don't do at all. As a matter of fact, I'm thankful to be surrounded by people who that's their job, to defend that. My job is, I sell ice cream to Eskimos, and I believe that gross revenue solves all problems. And whether those two true statements are true or not, that's just how I'm made up. Thank goodness we have people in our organization who push back and say, hey, that's a terrible engagement. We're not going to make any money on that. So we are always profit first.
Do you guys have to say no to some clients then?
Oh my gosh. If you don't, all you are is all things to everybody, which means you aren't anything to anyone.
Right. So as an entrepreneur, part of the success is being focused on the segment that you can help the most, that really benefits from your platform.
Yeah. So Jonah, I'm someone who naturally wants to say yes. So because I'm a gross revenue guy. So my personality is like this, like kumbaya yes thing. So I've had to learn how to say no. I've also had to learn how to listen to people who are willing to say no for me. And so that's the struggle of the innovative entrepreneur, is to either be able to find a way to say no or get real close to you, someone whose voice you're willing to listen to about the times to say no.
If you could go back, the last, I guess, couple of years, I mean, even to the, some of your predecessor or previous companies, if you could do one thing differently, I guess, what would you do? Anything stand out? I mean, because we've all, I think, my first 3 or 4 startups, I mean, they were disasters because I just made so many mistakes because I was doing things for the first time in industries I didn't know anything about. If I could go back, I would do a million things differently. So,
yeah. So, I mean, I built a web builder for in the hosting world that before it even existed. It's all commonplace now, but
right.
I built that before it even existed, the technology or anything. And I look back to that time and how impetuous I was. And I was so focused. I love buyer behavior. So I always think about why you buy something. I put the end and the trouble points at mind. So I haven't lost that skill set. I love that. But I would quickly worry about people buying more than I would worry about the value proposition. So early on, I cared about sales, selling it to more people, and the baseline value is okay, but I didn't always push our company to continue to make value better. And I burned for sure 2 companies with that kind of mindset. And, we just fixed that. The other thing I did recklessly and I guard against is I don't think you can operate more than one thing at a time. And so we have a sister company called Total CEO that was going to launch and kind of did in the world of helping to grow up CEOs and kind of be a great support to a community you have. I put the brakes on it because what was the missing component was the leader who was going to run that. And it was going to take me away from what my core responsibility was. So even with all my success, I'm not protected against the distraction of multiple businesses. We're going to be very careful about that.
Right. I think the terminology, like the parallel entrepreneur, the serial entrepreneur goes, starts something, builds it, grows it, exits it, and then starts the next one. The parallel entrepreneur tries to do 2 or 3 at the same time. And I've made that mistake too. It is hard to focus on 3 things at the same time. So
I haven't really, quite honestly, seen a parallel entrepreneur work, because the problem is that person really isn't a parallel entrepreneur. They run something and then they either are an investor or have someone else running the other things. But if you truly dial it down, I don't know of anyone with excellence who's running multiple things.
The only 2 people I've seen do it are Elon Musk and Jack Dorsey, but they've raised so much money. They have huge teams around them with so much experience that I don't really know how much they're actually doing. It doesn't feel like either.
I think you change the equation there, Jonah. They're not running that. Right.
Right.
They're visionaries who handed it off.
Exactly.
In that sense, Richard Branson's a genius at that,
True.
right? Having multiple companies, but they're not operators. We're talking to the community of people who are listening who thinks they can operate more than one business at a time. And that's what's treacherous.
Yeah. It's like smaller businesses that are still kind of in growth mode.
Or whatever. Even they're just early 7-figure businesses. Instead of doubling the size of that one, they think, why don't we go start another one? The other thing I would tell your people is I think everything you think it takes in time, double it. So if you think something takes 6 months, make it a year. I'm convinced that everything takes double the amount of time you think it takes.
So I'm actually in the process of starting kind of a mentorship group for entrepreneurs that want to grow their businesses by 10x in 3 years or less. And since you've done that multiple times, maybe you can kind of give some advice. If someone came to you and said, "Hey, I'm running a $1 million business right now, and I want to grow it 10x in 3 years," what would you tell them?
Yeah. So I think people spend way too much time and money on acquisition and not retention. And so there's a leaky bucket in a business. And I'll tell you, I would dial in my numbers on what's working. I'd get rid of my losers, ride my winners, because everyone else tries to 10x with the winners and losers mixed in there. And it's
Right.
just not going to happen. You might 2x, you might limp along, but you're never, 10x is ridiculously hard, Jonah, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Well, the only time you can probably 10x really honestly is in the startup phase.
Yeah, right. 500,000 to 5 million. Right. And we're only this is for like early stage entrepreneurs doing, anywhere from 200,000 to $1.5 million. So it's still very early. Once you start to get into the seven figures, that 10x becomes much, much harder.
Yeah. So for example, FullyAccountable's goal this year is to have 3x growth. Right? Okay. And so that to me is still very aggressive. And, last year we got a little over 2 point whatever in growth. We didn't hit 3, but we doubled in size, but not tripled in size. And so, man, 10x, I know there's like this sexy talk about it out there. It just sounds good. It's extremely hard to do.
But like I said, it's very early stage. So it's, and it's, 3 or 4 people going to 12 or 15 people in 3 years, which is, not unrealistic for some case. It doesn't work for everybody.
We did it. Our first year was 10x growth. Let's call it what it is. You go from 0 to 7-figure business, you've 10 times your growth.
Exactly. There you go. Yep.
So we did it. Most startups that actually catch the curve and are a needle mover do experience that. It's just not replicatable after that season 1 of your business.
Yeah. Right. 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 So these are all early companies that are, probably 3 years. 3 years or younger in most cases. And
it was funny, that's actually the great thing you bring up. We're about to see our hockey stick growth in year 3. It's taken us really time to get ready for this and figure out truly what the market wants. There's this thing in the startup world that we think the first version of what we do is going to hit. And instead of spending time being I think what startups need to be, here you go. We need to be scientists. We need to put our hypothesis out there and wake up every day trying to prove ourselves wrong. And it's in that process, we'll find out exactly what the consumer wants. Well, I've done that, I think, at a very high level with excellence at FullyAccountable. It took me this amount of time to figure out truly what the consumer wanted. And so now we're going to see experiential type growth that looks like hockey stick or even exponential beyond a 2 or 3x model.
You mentioned early on in the interview that you like to launch things fast, right? You want to get it out there. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then you can get feedback from the customer until you kind of get that product market fit. So what does the platform look like now compared to what it did when you guys first launched? How much more robust is it now?
Oh, you always got to iterate. So I want to make sure your crowd and you hear one thing. Iterating, getting the first version out means it's the best version of the simplest version of the thing you do. So the problem most people make is they go add all the sidecar and all the little things it can do, but isn't its core service. So when I want to get live, I want the primary promise of what I do working very well. And then from there, go add in all the, put the wallpaper and the carpet and, decorate the house. But the house has to be built. And so many people take that all wrong. They put up a first version and their primary promise doesn't even work. So to me, get first and then get rid of all the things that don't do that, because everyone will forgive you in iterating into the robust things. They won't forgive you if your core thing is broken.
Awesome advice. I love that. Before we wrap up here, what can you mentioned that your goal in terms of revenue growth for 2017 is 3x. Any other goals for the company you'd like to share with us, or any hiring that you guys are doing that we should know about?
So our core mission statement in our company is to double the size of 10,000 businesses. And so, we're only 200 and something into that on our done for you side. So, we have a goal this year of having, 1,500 active users in our software. And so that's a goal. Really, quite honestly, if someone's looking to join a great team, that's got always a room for a salesperson, always a room for an affiliate manager. We've got a pretty cool organization and they can work from anywhere in those roles. So there's a shameless plug to you, Startup World. But also, Jonah, I wanted to say to you, we have some gifts for your community. We really love the startup world. And because I have such a propensity to always drive out of it, we have gifts for you. So at fullyaccountable.com/startup sense, we'll have gifts from my latest book. I'm on my third book now. That'll be there free to your, we're going to give our second one out because we're into the publisher on our third one. We'll switch that link out when it's time. And we have some free resources on how to help hire correctly, as well as some critical metrics on how we would measure so that your listening community can have that and they can get all that there.
Fantastic. I'll put all that in the show notes. So greatly appreciate it. That's very kind of you. What are some of the books that you've written thus far? And I assume they're probably available on Amazon, but what do you typically like to write about?
My first book, that's a great question. My first book, literally, I in the shower, this is how the story goes. I was in the shower. I'm like, so that's the title to the book? I literally, my brain had a title to a book I didn't even know I was writing. And it was like this kind of outpouring about like what I've learned about recognizing the value that I've been uniquely made to give to others. So it's a real like personal, value driven about you. It's called The Best Investment, A Better You. And it's all about me and my story. The next book was clearly all about growing a business. So it's called The CEO's Mindset. And it's all about my journey of how I've grown at the time, our 3 8-figure businesses. And my third book, its current working title is called False Profits, but I'm probably changing its name. But it's all designed around the story of Fully Accountable, but more importantly, how to have a profit margin first attitude so that you can pay yourself first.
Paying yourself is always good.
Yep.
Last question here. What's your best way to retain employees, right? I mean, you mentioned kind of the leaky bucket, which, applies to your customers, but it also applies to your employees. So how do you keep people, motivated to help you build Fully Accountable?
I think there's 2 things we do terribly wrong as entrepreneurs. One is we don't invest in our people. And I don't mean like seminars or training, but we as an entrepreneur, we get something running and we disappear. And so the reason why my team really enjoys this environment is because my unique, quirky little visionary self is running around it and they draft off my energy all the time. That's critical. The other thing is I built an environment where I want to be. If you don't want to be there, why would you be arrogant enough to believe anybody else does?
Totally agree.
Yeah. So those are my 2 things I live by.
Awesome. Yeah, the employees need to buy into the vision of the CEO, and I can tell that you are quite the visionary. So,
well, I've got enough vision for a blind village. We don't need any more of that. Yeah, we got enough of that.
Well, I guess I'd like to end it there. What is the best way for us to connect with you online or learn more about the company?
Yeah, so Vinnie Fisher is very accessible in multiple things. I've got fun little branded stuff about me. You can find me in all the social media outlets, and you can find us at FullyAccountable.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Vinnie. Really, really appreciate it. You've been an amazing guest. Excited to keep in touch with you. And, obviously you guys are off to a great start here with the company. Want to wish you more continued success.
Hey, Jonah, thanks a lot for having us today. And whatever we can do to support you into the future, we love what you guys are doing over there at Startup Sense.
Thanks, Vinnie. Appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.